one of the biggest fears, and people don't address this, fear of disappointing other people. If you look at the job, the promotion, the working hard, you're doing that to be rewarded. You're doing that to maybe achieve some type of accolade. Maybe it's extra pay, maybe it's a promotion, but it's to please that particular establishment, right? So you have a fear of disappointing that particular company, individual, whatever it is. So you continue to go. And the reason why I bring that up is because we have to stop being afraid of ourselves. I think a lot of us are afraid of just being us because we look at social media, we look at a lot of different things, and success is projected a certain way. Beauty is projected a certain way. Importance is projected a certain way. And we try to model ourselves. Some people try to model themselves after these things we see on social media. And what happens is we end up being depressed. We end up being unfulfilled because it's just like, man, either I accomplished that and I still feel empty, or I just can't, I'm not as successful as this person because look at what they have, look at what they're doing. Instead of saying, what do I really want? Like, do I really want that promotion? Do I really want to go in this particular direction in my life? So the fear that people need to get over is actually being themselves and caring about what other people think. Imagine if everybody said, you know what? I'm going to really, really discover who I am.
Meiyoko Taylor is a two-time best-selling author, transformation coach, and serial entrepreneur. And for over a decade has helped top performers, entrepreneurs, professionals, and public figures boost their mental health by breaking free from the hustle and grind trap and creating a life full of purpose, freedom, and fulfillment. In our conversation, we discussed the 3 questions you need to ask yourself immediately: how high-profile entrepreneurs, executives, and politicians approach life, and the age-old question of whether money buys happiness. Enjoy our conversation. Meiyoko, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks, Daniel. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course, and I'm really excited to have a great conversation, and I'm really a big fan of a lot of the work that you're up to, and I really want to ask you a lot about, a topic that's prevalent these days, such as burnout and setting boundaries, and really a lot of different directions we can go in, but here's actually where I want to start. I know in your personal story, in your personal life story, you also dealt with some of these issues and had to overcome that. So what's your story of burnout?
So I have probably experienced burnout more than once, first and foremost. The last time was probably the worst because I was dealing with, strained relationship, personal relationship. And at the same time, my father was sick. He got diagnosed with cancer. So 2 very important people in my life were being affected at one time. Not only that, I was trying to be the best coach and deal with clients and build a business and all those things. And to be honest, some exciting professional things were taking place, but that didn't really matter because what was really truly important to me, to my core, there was trouble, things going on. So for me, I learned from that experience that we look at burnout incorrectly. And I know that's going to kind of raise somebody's hand, right, when I say that.
All good.
But to be honest with you, I think a plane is coming, so we're going to stop for a second.
It's all good. This is live right here. This is real life. Sometimes,
Right.
we're not. This is a good example of how we're not in control. Sometimes stuff happens, and we just gotta let it
Plane
go.
comes, you just got to let it pass.
Exactly. So the plane comes, and we'll keep doing what we're doing.
Right. So like a lot of people, right? People, the first thing they think of when it comes to the word burnout, they think of, I'm working too many hours at the job. I'm really stressed out. I'm trying to get this promotion. I'm really like into my role as a mom, a husband, a wife, a spouse, whatever, a caregiver. And it's just exhausting so much external energy, right? This is how I used to think of it. And commonly, like, they just coined burnout, specifically something that's being dealt with in the workplace. Like, this is literally like a big thing now. This is what they call burnout. What I learned from my last experience was all the periods of burnout had a common denominator, and it was internal factors. Most people focus on the external factors of burnout. They never focus on why the behavior or the internal factors that are leading to the manifestation of the burnout we focus on the most. And that's the not getting enough sleep, and I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm frustrated. We never trace it back to why. Sometimes, dealing with clients and myself, my own, It could be some type of trauma in their past that caused them to be, and we're going to get into chronic people pleasing in a little bit because I used to be that person too. And that and burnout is very, very connected, by the way. So we look at it from a perspective of what is that environmental situation or foundation that you grew up on? What are your beliefs? What are your values? That's one of the first things I ask somebody that's very burnt out. And one of the common responses that I get is that, I want to be the best mom. I want to be the best this and best that. And I'm trying to please everybody. There goes the P word. So it's just like, oh, okay. All right. So let's peel that back a little bit. When did you start to really feel like you had to please everybody else other than yourself? And then they'll go into wanting to be the best particular role, whatever that is. And I just feel like if I please everybody else, everybody's happy. Reality is we cannot make everybody happy. We're all human beings. We experience all the same emotions at any given point in time. So what I learned is that is burnout. I think we think burnout is the actual symptoms or the manifestations, but the burnout is actually happening within us. We just see the manifestations of it. And a lot of people don't look at it from that perspective. So I've been getting a lot of feedback, a lot of people reaching out because they want to hear this new perspective on burnout because I can't say nobody, but nobody I know and not a lot of people are addressing burnout in this particular state. Because my theory is if you deal with the internal breakdown, the internal obstacles that you have, the manifestations that you see, which we call burnout, will either decrease or completely eliminate altogether. And if they show up again, you know exactly what to do to actually manage them.
As humans, I love how you mentioned we're all perfectly imperfect. So I think that's something that we have to accept sooner or later, and the
Right.
sooner the better. I'll put it at that. But speaking of burnout, a lot of people burn out for a lot of different reasons. Do you think that the likelihood of burnout is much less when we're kind of dedicating our heart and soul into something we genuinely believe in and enjoy doing, as opposed to just, I don't want to shit on corporate America here, but working some 9 to 5 or longer job that we don't like?
Yes and no. Yes, because when you're doing something that you enjoy and it doesn't feel like work, you have less stress as far as being in a state of frustration and where I don't want to be here.
Like
Right?
flow state, basically.
Right. But here's the thing. If you are putting so much passion and serving and all those particular things and you start to neglect yourself, now you're bringing up a totally different problem. So although you may love this, you may be neglecting personal relationships. You may neglect your health. You may be neglecting all the other obligations and responsibilities that you have. So as a result, you're still affecting yourself in not the most advantageous way.
Hmm.
So that's the no part about it, because you have to be able to be balanced in the sense of, okay, I'm passionate about this. And it's hard when you're there to serve. Like a lot of people I talk to, they're therapists, they're doctors, they're nurses, they're entertainers, they're people that serve on a daily basis. And they love doing this stuff, but you have to know when to say, all right, cool. Have that boundary and be like, all right, these are the other areas of my life that really need my attention and my focus. So yes, because you don't have the stress of being in a place you don't want to be. No, if you don't actually balance and have enough boundaries to focus on other areas of your life. Because we go all in. Sometimes when we're passionate about something, man, we go all in. We don't eat, we don't sleep. We're reading everything. We're taking trainings. We're out there making the money. We're doing all these things. And then there are other areas of our life. It's just like we're a public success, but then a private failure. And what I mean by that, so many areas of our life are crumbling. The things that are very important to us now are starting to be affected. And we're like, man, what's going on? I'm passionate. I'm making an impact. I'm doing this. And it's just like, yeah, buddy, you're making an impact, but it's only in one specific area. You can't
Story
forget
of my
about anything else.
Yep, story of my life. When I initially started the podcast, I think I was probably working way too many hours, going to bed way too late, and I went on a run with a friend. I want to say 4 or 5 months after I started the podcast, and he came like a Friday morning. He's like, "Dude, you look exhausted."
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, "Yeah, I was up all night editing, like doing a bunch of stuff." And he's like, "Look, like it's the same amount of hours in the day. Why don't you just go to bed earlier and like wake up earlier?" And I was like, yeah, I could just do that. In the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, sometimes I don't love waking up early, but I'm like, you know what, it's a small adjustment to feel a little bit better. And afterward, I've noticed I've definitely felt a lot better, and thankfully been more productive, and have had a lot of great conversations, and it seems like I've had more success doing that. But
Well, here's the thing too. Like, I'm not going to say they're not days where you stay up late. I'm not going to
yeah,
say
they
those are
happen. They just shouldn't happen all the time.
necessary. They're necessary. But the thing is, you have to have an equilibrium with that stuff. You can't be up 4 or 5 days out doing that same thing, then expecting to go jog and expect to nurture all your other relationships. It's not going to happen.
Yep, for sure. And I definitely agree with you in the sense that those nights still happen once in a while, but if they happen, kind of on an ongoing basis, you're on the path to burnout, as we mentioned earlier. But
Absolutely.
speaking about that path, I think a lot of people end up learning that as, they experience burnout. But say someone is kind of going all in on their passion or all in on something they enjoy. What's something they can do beforehand to ensure some kind of sense of equilibrium? It may not be perfect, but to get them on the path of like being able to keep that sustainable work while still taking care of themselves.
I think they have to look at the overall spectrum. We get so passionate about something, we just go all in, like I said, on one thing. Being in alignment with your values, your principles, and your beliefs are so important, because once you have those things, and I mean literally write them down, your beliefs about different areas of your life, your values, your principles, and those things that you live by and you revisit every single day. When you do that, you're not just going to be so driven towards that one particular thing. If one of your, for example, if one of your values, your principle is, I always take time to nourish my mental and emotional health every single day. Let's say that's a principle. If you realize you're constantly working on this particular passion and you feel a little bit emotionally and mentally exhausted, that principle and that value is going to kick in and say, hey, remember what values and principles you stand on. So, okay, all right, let me scale back on this for today and let me nourish myself mentally and emotionally, or physical exercise, whatever it is. We have to make sure our values and our principles are in alignment, because if we do that, then we have a better opportunity and a better chance of being completely like aligned with everything else.
So, a big driver, a lot of this, unfortunately, is fear. And a lot of times people don't get in alignment is because they have that fear factor facing them and they don't want to address it because it's almost like this conditional need of just is having trouble coming up with a word, but avoiding fear and like not really going over that. So, as we're on this journey, as we're trying to have our values aligned, our passions aligned, how do we overcome fear?
Well, in burnout, since we're on the topic of burnout, I think one of the biggest fears, and people don't address this, fear of disappointing other people. If you look at the job, the promotion, the working hard, you're doing that to be rewarded. You're doing that to maybe achieve some type of accolade. Maybe it's extra pay, maybe it's a promotion, but it's to please that particular establishment, right? So you have a fear of disappointing that particular company, individual, whatever it is. So you continue to go. And the reason why I bring that up is because we have to stop being afraid of ourselves. I think a lot of us are afraid of just being us, because we look at social media, we look at a lot of different things, and success is projected a certain way. Beauty is projected a certain way. Um, Importance is projected a certain way. And we try to model ourselves. Some people try to model themselves after these things we see on social media. And what happens is we end up being depressed. We end up being unfulfilled, because it's just like, man, either I accomplished that and I still feel empty, or I just can't, I'm not as successful as this person because look at what they have, look at what they're doing. Instead of saying, what do I really want? Like, do I really want that promotion? Do I really want to go in this particular direction in my life? So the fear that people need to get over is actually being themselves and caring about what other people think. I mean,
That's
imagine if everybody said, you know what? I'm going to really, really discover who I am, my unique talents, my abilities, what I'm passionate about. I'm not going to worry about what anybody else is saying right now. And this is why we see people in our society that are just, man, they're stars, they're accomplishing, and they're just killing it in their industries. And a lot of the times people are like, oh, they're so weird. They're weirdos. Like, I don't get them. They don't even really care that you get them or not. But what these people are doing is they're completely owning a particular part of themselves and they're just going for it. So that's why like people that they defeat the status quo stand out so much in our society, because I can't see in every area of their life because I don't know their whole life, but in what we see, they finally said, this is me, this is who I am. I'm going for it, and I don't care what anybody says. I'm going to accomplish it. And this is why a lot of those types of people stand out. And we can all do that. We just all don't think that way because we're so bombarded and distracted by everything else. So it's the
So
fear of really looking at yourself and who you really are, man, to be honest.
facts for sure. And I love the way that you put that. And I just want to emphasize that a lot of these people that have been able to achieve a lot of those things have been able to tolerate a quote unquote unhuman amount of fear and unhuman amount of uncertainty. So they
Right.
definitely deserve all the flowers that they get. But say for most people that are, just starting out on their passion journey, are there any exercises people could do to really overcome their fear? Like kind of small things that they could do that make them uncomfortable, that'll condition them to handle, more uncertain circumstances?
3 questions. Who are you? What do you really want? Not what everybody else is saying. What do you really want? Who you are? Who are you? What do you want? And what is it going to take to get there? 3 of the most simple questions in life that'll get you very far.
Mm.
You find out who you are to your core, authentically who you are. Now you can say, okay, all right, what do I want? I really want this. Okay, all right, cool. What's it going to take for you to get there? It's going to take this, it's going to take that, it's going to take that. Now listen, you can apply that to any area of your life. If it's a job, if it's being an entrepreneur, if it's being a better husband, being a better wife. And I'll use that as an example. Give you a couple more
Hypotheticals.
nuggets. All right,
Yep.
so who am I? And I'll do this for women. Who am I as a wife? What do I want as a wife? What is it going to take to get there? Who am I as a professional athlete? What do I want to accomplish as a professional athlete? What is it going to take for me to get there? We see this all the time. We hear about the Kobe Bryants and the great basketball players. He knew who he was, he knew what he wanted, and he knew what it took to get there. I hear that Kobe Bryant was the first person in the gym and he was the last person to leave. That's what it took for him to perform at a high level. So what is it going to take for you to operate at a high level in every area of your life and to be completely aligned? You have to know who you are. You have to be clear on what you want. And you got to know how to get there. Clarity is everything. Clarity is in everything that I just said. Be clear about who you are, clear about what you want, clear about what it takes to get there. Now, sometimes along our journey of life, me included, things happen. Life happens. And we kind of get knocked off a little bit. And we forget about those particular things. Either one of those areas, we forget how to get there, or we stop doing what we need to get there, or we forget who we are. Then we got to go back to square one and kind of rediscover who we are. Then we rediscover what we want. And then we go back. It's the same process, man. We fall off in one of those 3 areas in life, period.
Do you think a lot of it has to do with pursuing your passion or pursuing your purpose without fear of judgment or failure?
Right. I think a lot of it has to do with that too, pursuing your passion without being afraid to be judged. But my thing is, passion without purpose is,
Empty.
yeah. I mean, when you have it, like for me, I used to be so scared to talk to people, and I'm a talker, man. I love like helping people and all that stuff. But there was a point in time where I was like, oh man, I don't want to. Kind of felt like a little shy to talk to people. Very long time ago, but I tell people, when you focus on your purpose and you stop being so selfish, worrying about how you look, how you feel, what you think, and how you're here to serve, a lot of that goes away, man. You stop worrying about what people think. Like I at this point in my life, I could care less what anybody thinks of me.
Got it.
I know
Well,
there's some person out there that's burnt out, that's crying behind the scenes. Nobody even knows. But I'm going to be able to reach through your podcast. Somebody's going to listen to this. I don't know who. Somebody's going to listen to this and be like, I really resonate with this man is saying. Like, those 3 questions are really going to help me get to where I need to be. So I could care less what anybody says to me, what anybody thinks, because my mindset is purpose driven. So a great way to get over fear, a lot of people say, oh, do it until you don't feel the fear. No, fear is going to be there. Purpose will override fear every single time.
purpose will override fear. I like that. I also wanted to say, I think you're a great speaker. So I know you said you don't care what people think of you, but I hope you'll
I appreciate that. I
take
appreciate it.
that. But So, on this note, a lot of people, when they're trying to, get over their fear or trying to deal with a lot of these mental things, a lot of them are doing it for the pursuit of success. But a lot of times, success and fulfillment may not be the same thing. So,
Right.
I want to get into a bit of a two-part thing here.
Okay.
Do you think that there's a difference between success and fulfillment, and whether there is or isn't, can the two be coexisting at the same time?
Man, that's another dual question, man. Uh, all right,
Came on the
so
right podcast today.
all right, so what I'll say about success. Now, are you talking about? See, there's different components to success. There's professional success and there's personal success. Those are two components, right? You can be very successful as a business person, successful in a professional career, and completely suck as an individual. Nobody likes you. Nobody wants to be around you, but you are brilliant in your profession. So the question I would ask is, do you feel like that person is successful all around? The answer would be no. So I feel true success is somebody that is thriving, growing, and improving in every area of their life. That's true success. And it's not based on what anybody else thinks. It's based on 100% authentically who they are. That's success. If you can wake up every morning doing what you love to do, you have these enriched relationships, you're happy and you're fulfilled. And it's really not about as much the amount of money that you have or anything like that. You're completely fulfilled in your personal and your professional life. That is success, man. Like, seriously, that is success. I've talked to some very wealthy and very successful people in the business world who are absolutely miserable in their personal life. Miserable.
What's so interesting about that? A lot of times, we live in a society where obviously like we need money to meet basic needs, but
Hmm. Hmm.
what's interesting is if we look at it more from the reverse perspective, if we look at it more from we just, need these basic needs and on top of that, we just kind of need to be around the people we love, be able to, have a drink or something, if that's someone's vibe and just kind of be able to talk, shoot the shit, that kind of thing. And we live in a society where it's just that's just like how it is. You need kind of money to make ends meet. But what's interesting about it is if people were confident enough that they could make ends meet and overcome that fear, they'd be a lot happier because then they could do that, make money doing their passion, but also be able to just shoot the shit with their friends. So it's one of those things that I think people a lot of times maybe overestimate. This is also my opinion. I'm happy to like debate
No,
with someone.
no.
Always happy for open conversation, but I think people a lot of times overestimate really the amount of money they need. Obviously, life is getting more expensive. Inflation is a thing, but I think a lot of times what you really need to be happy is just you need to eat some good food. You need to have a be able to provide for your family. But beyond that, it's all about the people you love and hang out with them.
Right. I also believe that we're all unique individuals. We have our unique experiences, right? Gifts and talents. Some things that we're born with, they're just gifts, man. I feel like everybody has the potential to take one gift that they have to solve a very important problem and to make a lot of money with. I believe that about everybody. I just feel like we don't take the time to really discover what that is. And people that discover what it is, they give up too easy.
So I think that's a really valid point, but how does someone go about finding that gift? Or what can they do to find that gift?
Who am I? What do I want? What is it going to take to get there?
So,
And the who I am, you'll find a lot of experiences in your life that kind of let you know who you are and what has shaped you as a person. What do you really want? Okay, well, if I want to make more money, I want to make a difference, but who I am is somebody that's passionate about this. Okay, whatever that passion is, you tie that to, oh, well, you know what? I feel very passionate about this. I want to help people do this. All right, so now you got a purpose behind it. Whatever that is, I'm sure there's a lucrative way for you to actually make money doing it. And this is the part of research and really discovering ourselves that people miss out on because they're so bombarded by everything else. Who you are as a person, who you are as a business person, as a professional. What are you passionate about? What do you feel driven to? That's why I said beliefs, principles, and values are important because in all those things, you're going to find a purpose that lies in there.
so what's beautiful about that? I love how it returns to those three simple principles, but maybe get on top of that, and I think this goes to one of the things that we were discussing a little earlier, and I want to talk a little bit later. So who you are, what you want, and what's it going to take. The first step of that, who you are, I think a lot of times, in this day and age, especially with social media, people have trouble being honest with themselves. So
They,
how can someone really just be honest with themselves, regardless of judgment and regardless of whatever else someone's going to say? It would be funny if you answered this kind of with the same three words, but I'm curious if there's another way of looking at
I
it.
would say it. I would use the same three questions, but I'm not going to do that. What I will say is they need to stop running from themselves. They're running towards everything else instead of to themselves. Turn social media off. Sit down with yourself. Grab a notepad, whatever, lay on the couch, put some sounds on, whatever it is you do, and really start to really think about who you are and what it is that you really want. I feel like social media distracts us so much because we feel like that's the norm. I'm 43 years old, but I didn't have.
You look great for 43, by the
Thank
way. Let
you.
me
I
just say
appreciate
that.
it. I appreciate it. I didn't have those particular things that we now have access to. Social media is great. It's amazing for so many things. You can reach so many people. You can have a very incredible message and reach so many people at a short period of time. The bad part about social media is that everybody has a platform. The good part about it is everybody has a platform. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword, right? So we have to learn to disconnect ourselves from everything else and reconnect ourselves to who we are. And I think that would be the first step of getting away from that. Because me personally, I use social media as a tool, to get my message out. Sometimes, to network with people, but I don't allow it to get me to the point where I feel like my identity or what I want or my level of success or how I feel is tied to what I see on social media. And I think that's what really gets a lot of us so messed up, man.
That point's so relatable because, I think to myself, I kind of need social media for my business, for growing my podcast, for growing my
Mhm.
platform. I mean, that's just modern day the way it is. And honestly, if I could do it without social media, I'd probably be off it. I went through a period in my life where I was kind of struggling to figure out what I wanted to do with my career. And one of the things I did was kind of deleting Instagram, Facebook. I think maybe I kept Twitter because I like seeing those short thought messages. But besides that, basically off social media, and it's great because you can read books, you can observe nature, you can do all that really chill stuff.
Right.
So I definitely agree with you on the social media end on that note. And on the other thing that I wanted to say regarding just being able to sit with yourself, a small thing that I've done or a small change that I've done in my life recently. So I try to go to the gym in the morning, but sometimes, life happens. It doesn't always work out. If
Mhm.
I go to the gym late at night, I'll come home. And what I usually do is I'll drink tea after I eat. But in the past, what I would do is while the tea was cooling down, I'd be on my phone, play a game of chess, scroll YouTube, do all that stuff. Something that I started doing recently was just kind of, letting the tea cool down and me just kind of sitting there with my thoughts. And that 10-15 minute span, by the way, it's very hot tea, so that's why I gotta wait 10-15 minutes. But in that 10-minute span, I've gotten some of the best ideas that I've had. Some of
Right.
them were risky, but some of them were, you know, even if it's a risk, it's a learning thing. But point is, just sitting with my own thoughts, that's when I've gotten the most creativity. And I think a lot of times people have trouble doing that because when they sit with their own thoughts, even if they're not on social media, their brains gravitate towards social media.
Absolutely.
And so they're kind of a little more miserable. So I think maybe a good exercise would be to trying to sit with yourself, really slow things down, and kind of do those three questions that you said
People don't
earlier.
like themselves, man. Some people don't even like themselves. You got to learn to like. It's funny. It's funny and not funny. You literally have to learn to like yourself and enjoy your own company. But we're focused on social media and what everybody else thinks is just I don't even know who I am. So when you sit down, it's just kind of for example, some of my friends they would call me and be like, "Man, I'm just so bored. I don't have anything to do."
It's the
It's
worst.
there's always something to do though. So I'm just you have such a great time when you're with other people, but when you get by yourself, you're just so bored you can't stand it. And I'm just man, it must really suck to not be able to stand yourself. And they're they never really thought about it that way. So it's just find some things you like to do with yourself. What are you passionate about? What do you enjoy? We're not taught as a society to really focus on our gifts, our values, our principles, and things like that. We're taught to Look at what everybody's doing. And a lot of people we have this people pleasing. I call it the people pleasing pandemic, because you look at social media, everybody's trying to please everybody else. I'm trying to post this car. I'm trying to post this Ferrari. I'm trying to post this house. I'm trying to be in this amazing gown. I'm trying to get this work done to my body. I'm trying to be in the gym. I'm trying to show my muscles. Like it's just a series of things that are projecting this is what life should be like. And it's not really focusing on us as individuals. So I think that's what it all boils down to. We have to learn to like ourselves and then love ourselves. Because you're not just going to run into, oh, God, I just love myself. It's not going to, no. Contrary to all the things we hear about loving yourself and self-love and all that stuff, no, you got to like yourself first. How about you
I,
start there?
for sure. I think the one thing that I would add to, I think a lot of it is, and this is, unfortunately prevalent more with kind of the younger generation, is that with social media, there's a lot of need for instant gratification. So a lot of times
Mm,
when you're sitting with yourself and you can't get that instant gratification, that's when a lot of that bad stuff starts happening. So really, I would advise people to start thinking more about how you can do stuff long term. And a great way to do that is, for example, if you ever find yourself bored, pick up a book. And then when you start reading a book, people will always be like, oh, I'm not interested. I'm not that. No, like reading is a hard thing to do. Like I'm not gonna cap. Like when I started reading, I've been only reading for a few years now. Like, yeah, it was hard, but like I started it. And the point is, now I've gotten a little bit better at it, but I'm never bored. Thankfully I have, stuff to do with the podcast, stuff to read about. But I think would strive people to, when they're bored, do something that challenges themselves, but will push
right.
themselves further. So
Right.
that's the one thing I'll add on that. Another thing that you've discussed a lot, and I'm more interested to learn a lot about, is something called the zone of genius. So could you break that down for me a little bit?
Zone of genius is, it's that place where you're at, where you take your experiences, your talents, and your actual gifts, and you kind of ball them in that whole space. And it's like that space of flow you said earlier. It's like that flow state. It's what's easy to you, but extraordinary to everybody else. And a lot of people completely overlook it. Sometimes it's just that thing where somebody's like, oh my God, how do you do this? Like, it's so phenomenal. And you know what we say? Oh, that's nothing. I've been doing that for years. And everybody's like, but it's so great. It's so amazing. That's nothing. And it's just like you're literally pushing away the one thing. You're trying to get to all these other levels, but you're literally pushing away the one thing that is your actual zone of genius. So like it's just like knowing that, like me for example, my zone of genius is people. Like I'm able to sit down with a person and talk to a person and start to unravel exactly where they're at as they're talking.
You're
It's just,
great at it, by the way. I can
thank you, I
attest
appreciate it.
from my end.
It's something that it's God given, and it's a lot of different trainings and NLP and all that stuff that I had. So I'm able to just sit and talk and listen, and I'm not listening to judge. I'm listening to see where you are. And what a lot of people don't realize, they tell me how they feel. They tell me what they believe. They tell me what they fear, and they tell me what they really want. So I'm listening for those. That's just my zone of genius, right? And I didn't realize that until several years ago. But I'm just like, man, because it came so easy to me. And I would always get the, you're so easy to talk to. Oh my God, I feel so much better. You help me do this, you help me do that. So, but to me, it was just like, I kind of felt bad for even charging for it, because it was just something that came so natural to me at that point, right? But it's usually something that's easy to you and extraordinary to somebody else. Like it's phenomenal to somebody else. Like they're completely blown away, but to you, it's just like, why are you acting so weird? Like this is just something that I do regularly.
Yeah,
So I would
I've
tell people to find that thing that they're so great at, that they love doing too, and they're passionate about it, but it's just something that they may have not even considered to take seriously enough to really impact people on a greater scale.
I have a really good personal example from this actually. So I think a little over 6 months ago, I actually got my wisdom teeth removed, and mine were like really, really bad. For those that know how wisdom teeth impactions are, mine were like very much in the bone. And when I went in for my consultation, I was like, I looked at it, I was like, good luck. I told like the surgeon, I was like, good luck doing this, and he like looked at it, he's like, eh. Like I've seen worse cases this week, so there is like definitely that validity. I think we just need to find what that thing is for sure. On a more personal note, so something that you did that I thought was really interesting, you actually had a stint as a speechwriter for some of the world's top entrepreneurs, executives, and politicians. While you were in that role, what did you learn about how these high-profile people approach life?
It's interesting because I actually have a company. One of my second company actually still continues to do this stuff for them. One of the things that I've realized is a lot of those people don't like bragging on themselves. And what I mean by that is they've accomplished so much. They've been through so many things in their story. A lot of those people do not like to relive certain instances and certain things that have happened in their life. So when we're putting together a speech and like that, we're asking questions and we're kind of getting a background on those particular things. And it's just like, I have to let them know that, and I hate to use the word vulnerability, but what I say is it is okay to be human. A lot of those types of people feel like they have to present a certain image for their audience. They have to be in a place where they always seem to be successful. And once I get them to understand, it's not really the success that really connects people. It's the trials. It's the rock bottoms, man. It's the, I was crying my eyes out. It's the, I wanted to give up. And I really wanted to punch somebody. Like, I was really in a bad space. I had a drinking problem. I had a drug problem. I was a horrible husband. I was a horrible wife. All these particular things, right? And then they see a product of somebody now that's thriving, that has a different outlook on life, that is achieving success, that is impacting other people. Now it's just like, wow, they were there and now they're here. And that, you know what that tells me? Maybe I can put the bottle down a little bit now. Maybe my marriage isn't doomed. Maybe I can really turn this thing around, because a lot of people, personal development is a huge industry for a reason. A lot of people look to improve themselves. So having somebody that they know has been there and are at a different stage in their life now, that allows them to connect and to relate. So I say, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to talk about your crap, your ugly, like the thing you probably most hate and love about your life at the same time, because it's made you who you are. It's helped you discover your passion and purpose and things like that. We got to talk about that. That's what connects people. Because if you don't have that element, okay, you're very successful. All right, how do you relate to me? If I'm sitting in the audience, let's say you, Daniel, you were speaking, right? And you're like, hey, my name is Daniel Blumin, and I'm just talking here, and I've became a millionaire. I'm a best-selling author and all this other stuff. You guys see me all over television. I'm going to sit there like, all this stuff is great, but how does this guy relate to me? Okay, you've experienced some success, but it may be like, you know what? I lost my father. He was one of the most important people in my life. I went into a depression, man, for several years. Like, I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't want to wash. I didn't want to sleep. I didn't want to do any of that stuff. Like, my dad was a very important part of my life, and it really dramatically affected me. But this is what I did to get out of it. Now you got my attention because my father passed. He was somebody very important to me. I went into a depressed state. I still washed, but I went into a depressed state, and that really affected my life. Actually kind of led me to the whole burnout thing, what I'm doing now. So hearing that is going to allow me to say, wow, okay, I see his success, but man, this guy was like me a couple years ago. He's exactly where I am right now. So if this guy on stage can tell me that he's at another level in his life and this impacted him in a positive way, man, I can get through this. Like, this is just a period for me. I can get through this because this guy is no different from me. He just took different steps. So I can it's that glimmer, man, of knowing somebody has done it. So I think that I try to have them keep that element. Like, don't be afraid. I know you're at this particular point in success, but don't be afraid to talk about that moment. And if you cry, man. Or woman, if you cry, you cry. Like, it's reality. It's part of being human.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. I tell people this. I'm very different from a lot of other coaches. I've been on calls with some of my clients, and one of my particular clients, she broke down one day. She just started crying, and it's almost like I could feel her pain. I cried with her, and she was like, "Oh my God, Meiyoko, I didn't mean to make you cry." I'm like, "It's okay, it's okay." But it's like you connect with people, man. Emotions are a powerful thing, and I just wanted to like let her know, like, look, that story is touching. I can understand because I've been through different situations in my life. So she's probably one of my best clients, and we just have a really, really awesome relationship because she knows that there's a safe space there where she can actually do this. And she resonated with my own personal story. So when I talk about coaching and making an impact and really, speaking on stage and sharing your story, this is serious, man. A story can change somebody's life. A story can keep somebody from committing suicide. A story can inspire somebody to start a business, to have a purpose. And I'll share this with you so you can move on. I'll share this really quick. There was one year, I want to say about 10, 12 years ago, I was going to give up coaching. I remember laying on my bed. I was completely burnt out at the time. And I was crying, man. I was in tears. It was I just going through something in my life. And I happened to be on Instagram. And somebody sent me a message in the DMs. I'll never forget it. She was 17 years old and she said, "Hey, Meiyoko," she said, "you don't know me." She said, "but I was preparing to kill myself." And she said, "I don't know why." She said, "I went on YouTube, I went on social media, and you popped up and you talked about not giving up and all this. I don't even know what she watched." She said, "I'm just telling you," she said, "I really don't know the purpose of my life yet. But," she said, "because of you, I now know that my life is worth living." And that really like gets me every time I talk about it, because that for me was just like, this is why you can't give up. This is why, like, what you're doing, you have to continue to do this because there's somebody out there. Stories, speeches, coaching, a sentence can transform somebody's life. Like, this is not some hokey, generic, cheesy thing that I'm saying here. I've actually literally experienced those situations like that many times over.
So it's definitely remarkable, and stories certainly unite us. And what's crazy about some of the things that you just said, because we're connecting right now, we're doing this thing. What's nuts is my father actually did pass away when I was very young, so it's just crazy that
Sorry.
example came up. But it's one of those things. It's like, obviously, me and you don't know each other that much, besides just kind of talking about before the show. And it's kind of crazy that like a random example that you thought of is like a real applicable example. And I think that just goes to show the wavelength of it. So definitely beautiful in there. Another one of the things that you spoke about, a lot of people often hit rock bottom and they have trouble, figuring out where to go back up. So say if someone is starting from zero or they lost it all and now they're starting from, scratch again, what advice would you give them, or how would you suggest that they work on their mindset to move forward?
Reconnect to who they are, determine what they want,
Mm-hmm.
and what it's going to take to get there. But I will,
Sure.
but I will add,
It's a good answer. It's a good answer. I can't
but,
blame you.
but I will add something else. We have to not be afraid of the process. We get really, really scared of the process and how it looks at the time. And I'm guilty of it myself. Like, when you're really at rock bottom and everything's going wrong, it's easy to develop self-pity, to blame yourself, and really go into this funk and this depression and this really like saddened state. But you have to know that it's temporary. Going through this several times, like, and sometimes it can be very dark. The process is the process. You can't cheat it. You can't avoid it. You can't go around it. It's a process, and you're in that process for a reason. So I would tell people to just be patient in the process. And in the process, it's almost like you're mining for gold. Find the gold in whatever situation that you're going in. And I know the situation may absolutely stink, man. But there's something in there that you're supposed to learn. There's something in your character that you're going to develop. And there's something in there that you're going to use to better your life and to help someone else. And when you think from that particular perspective, it makes things a little bit better. Now, I'm not going to say it's not going to still suck. but it's going to make things a little bit better. And when you come out, you're going to be able to extract all the things that you've learned because you went to that particular point of the process. Because I'll tell you right now, going through what, losing my father and my personal relationships going haywire and all that stuff, like I literally told myself, like, man, this is like a really low point for me. I'm overwhelmed. But here I am on a podcast talking to you about burnout and a lot of different things. So you just have to go through the process, man. And everybody's process is different. But one of the things that we have in common when it's a rock bottom part of your life, it all stinks. It just there's no nice way to say it. There's no clean way to say it. You just have to go through the process. You have to. You
I
have to.
hate I hate to quote the Sixers, but you got to trust the process when it comes to your
There you
personal
go.
life.
Trust the process.
Exactly. So, on a bit more of a personal note, when you've gone through those issues, and certainly we all have those ups and downs, like what have you done to bounce back from those mistakes?
Well, me, I mean, my father, he was a pastor, so we've always looked to prayer. I mean, to God first and foremost. For those who may not have a religious background or belief may be different, one of the things that I can say when you actually go through a rock bottom process and you go through a situation like that, you have to determine, one, give yourself time. And I have to say this, give yourself time to grieve, especially when it comes to losing someone you love. I mean, it could be a job. I mean, it could be something that devastates a friend, a situation, you being sick, you just being in a very low state in your life. Give yourself an opportunity to process that because a lot of us, oh man, I can't get down. I'm not going to get down. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And it's just like, reality is like, okay, all right. When are you going to come down and process everything that you're going through? So one, give yourself time to grieve, to feel sad, to be angry. If you need to punch something, don't try to hurt anybody. But I mean, if you need to punch something, you need to kick something, you need to cry, you need to scream, you need to yell, you need to shout. We all have these emotions. Don't keep that stuff inside because it's just going to eat at you. And I think people don't process emotions very well and very often. So I would say process that stuff, get that stuff out. Don't let that stuff stay in you. I didn't feel a lot better until I actually started to process all those things. So it can be you by yourself, no matter how ugly it looks, no matter how stupid it may look to somebody else. You're not around anybody else. You're by yourself. So get that stuff out. And I don't care if it takes a week. Like I tell some of my clients, I'm like, look, and they're out driving. I'm like, you're out driving. Are you angry? You're angry. All right, cool. After we get off this call, pull over. I want you to like knock your dashboard or like like jerk the wheel, whatever you have to do. You got to scream. And some of them are like are literally screaming and all this stuff. And then they're just like, oh my God, I feel a lot better. But I'm still angry. Okay, keep doing it. Go about your life and just keep doing it. Because at some point, emotion, guilt, shame, all those things, it's like poison to our system. You have to get that stuff out. So that I would have them stay right there because only until you get over that, you won't have the clarity and the drive to actually go to the next step. You're missing a step. You're trying to go through step 2 and you really haven't dealt with those emotions yet. It's not going to work. And it's going to show up in other areas of your life, which you can see. This is why a lot of people, they go through certain situations, traumas and things like that. They don't really deal with that and they go on through their life and it manifests somewhere else. Then they got to circle all the way back, man. And then it's just like 5 years ago, then now you have this whole story because they didn't do that. So
For sure.
that would be my advice for anybody dealing with something. Deal
Healthy
with it.
Yep, healthy venting is definitely, or kind of venting in a moderate way is definitely healthy to do once in a
The
while.
crazier and the worse looking, the better.
Yep, exactly. Just get it out so you can, because once it's out, you can have a clear mind, and a clear mind is a good base to
Right.
bounce back up. But I think another important aspect of that is trying to train ourselves to. I don't think we should always think positively. I mean, with a grain of salt, because I think we got to acknowledge sometimes life happens and some things suck, but we always have to try to, I think, think optimistically or think in a positive light when it comes to bouncing back. And This goes back to some of the stuff that we were talking about social media earlier, kind of in this day and age. How do you think we can condition positive thinking in the social media era?
We need more people to change the narrative of positivity and motivation. Motivation is being taught like it's something that you're always supposed to have. And if you don't have it, you suck or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
The reality of motivation is that you're not always going to be motivated and you're not always going to be thinking positive. How would you know what love is if there's no hate? How would you know what being happy is if you've never been sad? How would you know what excited is if you've never been terrified? Like, all of these are human emotions, and all of them are useful at some point in some place in our life, given the situation. So I think people need to understand that it's okay to feel whatever you're feeling, right? Feel it. If it's because of something that doesn't serve you, or if it's something that could be because of a limiting belief or something mistaken by you towards somebody else, then now you have enough emotional intelligence to deal with it. But you got to feel it. You got to feel it. It's okay to feel every emotion, man. Like, and this is especially in men, and I have to say this because we're brought up in a sense where it's just like, man, take it on the chin, man. Suck up, man. You know what I mean? What are you talking about? What are you crying for? But it's just like, we're human beings, and all these emotions that we're able to have, we're going to experience at some point in time. So I just feel like there should be more people with platforms that are going to tell people, yeah, sometimes I'm not motivated. Sometimes I'm not positive. Today actually stinks for me. I'm a little depressed today. Actually, I'm angry. I hate that I did something. But I don't hate myself. I hate the aspect that I did that particular thing, but I know what to do to change it. So that I'll be better next time.
There's a yin for every yang for sure. And I
Absolutely.
definitely agree with a lot of what you said. On February 7th, you actually had a tweet that is a universal question that I don't know if anybody's answered yet. Well, people have tried to answer it, but you tweeted, "Does money buy happiness?" So to revisit that tweet, what do you think?
All right. This is always a good question. So, money is a tool, money is a resource, right? Money can definitely improve your quality of life. Money cannot make you improve the quality within yourself. So, money can take me on nice trips. Money can make me smile. Money can give me experiences that no money can. No money can't. So money can definitely increase positivity. It can lower stress because bills and things like that. So money does have a very, very important use. It's extremely important.
Mhm.
But overall happiness, can it make you happy that you have a nice car, a nice house, that you can travel and have a better quality of life? Sure, that's going to make you happier for sure. But at the end of the day, if you are not happy with who you see in the mirror, I don't care how much money you have, you are not going to be happy overall, because you can only buy but so many houses. You can only drive one car at a time. You can have all these great relationships. You can have money in the bank. All right, so I can buy anything I want. I can travel anywhere I want. So what's going to happen after the 50th location you travel to? And you're still not happy with here.
My
So
theory on
you've got to
it,
be happy with that person you see in the mirror.
my theory on it is, I think up to a certain point, it can make us comfortable, but past that, we got to take care of ourselves. So definitely in
Absolutely.
agreement with what you said.
So let me ask you a question on your podcast, and this is for
Sure, go
you
ahead.
and for me. Can money buy you character?
It can't.
Exactly. Can money buy you? Let me see. Can money buy you kindness?
No, it's your choice to be a good person.
Exactly. So, and what I will say, and I'll end it at this: money only magnifies the person that's already there.
That's a
So
fact
if
for sure.
you're miserable without money and you're miserable internally, you're gonna get money, and that's gonna manifest, and you're gonna do a lot of reckless, crazy things with it. So, can
That's
money buy happiness? it can definitely increase the happiness in certain moments in your quality of life. But overall, at the end of the day, when the lights go out and you're laying in your bed and you're thinking about your life and who you are as a person, and if there's unresolved things in your life, no, it's not gonna fix that.
You got
So
to plant the seeds of happiness first, for sure. But
you
on
got
that note of, laying down and thinking about your life, and on a parting note here, you've been able to do a lot in your life and coach a lot of people and work with a lot of really great, talented, and, a lot of times high profile individuals. What's something you know now that you wish you knew 5 years ago?
Oh, that's a good question to end with, man. What is something that I wish I knew 5 years ago? Hmm.
It
That it
can't be
gets better.
stock prices, by the way.
That it gets better. It gets better.
Mm.
I really wish I would have knew that, because that would have alleviated a lot of stress and a lot of focusing on, oh my God, what if this happens? What if that happens? Like, what if I'm in this place, and what if I can't do this, and what if everybody's looking at me? And it's just like, if I knew that, dude, this is a process, man. Just chill out. Like, go through it. It stinks at the time, but you're going to come out so much better than this. So, like, knowing that it gets better, because sometimes we don't think so. We just don't think it'll get better. So, knowing that and having that understanding, oh man, I would have a lot of a lot of stress, a lot of aggravation, a lot of headaches, a lot of excessive worrying. I wouldn't have done all that. So, yes, that's definitely something I wish I knew 5 years ago. For sure. For sure.
Miyoko, this too shall pass. And thanks again, man. It's been a blast and appreciate you sharing everything. Really a great time. And it's thankful to have you on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Daniel. I appreciate you, man. This was great. I enjoyed myself.
Thank you for listening to my conversation with Meiyoko Taylor. If you enjoyed the episode, rate the show on Spotify, drop a comment on YouTube, and subscribe.